are. Yeah, welcome to Overpromised. What a week. Busy week filling in for Dan Patrick, doing the Dan Slam this week. We're Covino and Rich, normally on 2 to 4 on the west side, Fox Sports Radio. That's 5 to 7 on the east. Search Covino and Rich wherever you get your podcasts. And happy early 4th of July weekend, man. It's starting the weekend early like Mr. Furley. I'm having my drink right now.
What I say to you? Back it up, Terry. Back it up.
Love that,
What a
man.
reverse, Terry.
7th anniversary of Back It Up, Terry. Now, we got a movie, a perfect movie to celebrate today, speaking of anniversaries, and mandatories at a barbecue, okay? As you get up, get ready for your grilling and your 4th of July celebrations. What are the must-haves? We're going to get to that. But first, a controversial story, Rich, that we saved for Overpromised, because it gets a little too touchy on Fox Sports Radio sometimes, and here we're uncensored and unhinged, unleashed. Yeah. And it's the juicy, controversial story of the 32nd pick for the Utah Jazz in the 2024 NBA draft out of Duke, Kyle Filipowski. Now, the story's a little odd because now that he's famous and now that he's part of the Utah Jazz, a story that's always existed or has been existing for years is now getting national headlines, but it's still under the radar because, I don't know, I think we look at it differently. If it was a flipped around story, people would be in jail already. I'll explain. The story goes back to when Kyle Filipowski was in high school.
Yeah.
And he brought his prom date, Caitlin Hutchinson, to the prom. Now, they look like a sweet couple, but he's just a pimple-faced little 17-year-old boy in high school, and she was 26 at the time, right? And you have to imagine, even though he's a boy, the parents are like, hey, he's still just a kid. He's still just a kid. And go ahead.
Because he's a big boy and he's a basketball player and he's a huge-ass kid, you can't forget that there still is a monstrous age difference. I'm not saying it's teacher-student, but the other night I watched, our buddy Dan Patrick star in That's My Boy with Adam Sandler, where he's just a teenager and the hot teacher takes advantage. I'm not saying that's this, but we do hold a different standard for hot teacher or hot older woman and younger guy. And if you flip it, it's creepy.
And I think that's why this gets overlooked, to be honest, but it shouldn't because it's a crime. You have to put yourself or take yourself out of that, bro, good for him mindset, because it's wrong, right? You got to imagine if that's what, that was your son. How would you feel about that? How would the mom feel about that? How would you feel as a dad if that was your son? He's with this older woman, an older woman who potentially sees potential and dollar signs in NBA drafts in the future, right? Like, what does she really have in common with this little kid? Again, there's like a 8-9 year age gap at this point. So you fast forward, he gets drafted by the Utah Jazz. He's 20. She's now 28 years old. And people are starting to research. You know how web sleuths are. And they're like, wait a second. She's been with this dude since he was young. That's illegal. That's not right. And then you start to realize that the family chimes in, and it's a little deeper and even a little more darker than we thought.
Sinister.
There you go. His brother chimes out on social media, and his brother's like, yo, you guys don't have a clue what this has done to our family. This has torn our family apart. You don't even understand what's going on. We've been talking about this for a long time, and nobody cared. And he also indicates that maybe there's some Mormon tie-ins or something like that, and the Utah Jazz and this and that. I don't know anything about that. Again, that's all speculatory here. And then the mom comes out too, and the mom says, hey, you guys are starting to open up a 2-year-old issue that we've had. And again, as a mom, it's tearing the family apart because she's grooming our son. She groomed our son to the point, Rich, where he's estranged from his family. So at the draft, it was just him and his girlfriend, who again is 28 and he's 20 now. She's indicating or implying that she had her eyes on a ring the whole time.
Well, that's one of the reasons why this dude dropped to the second round in the draft. Teams that interviewed him had a weird feeling about this older woman. Like, yo, tell us about your family. Tell us about your girl. And apparently this kid was very awkward and his stock dropped significantly. The family, listen, when your family, when your friends, when your teammates, and everyone has the same sentiment, this woman might not be good news. You got to take that as an indicator. Like, if one buddy's like, yo, I don't like your girl, that's one thing. If your mama doesn't like your girlfriend, again, that's one thing. If everyone has the same narrative, trouble, my dude, trouble.
And when an older woman is pulling a young man, a successful young man, away from his family, these are major, major warning signs, right? Like, this is highly manipulative, and you have to realize that an older woman like this in this situation has a crazy amount of control on a young dude.
Of course,
and again, she had him at a very influential age of 17. He's probably worshiping everything she said.
Booty, 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 rocking everywhere. Dude, if a woman's attractive and older, she got the smarts and the ass, this kid's going to be confused. Look at him. This kid looks like he's going through puberty, and some good-looking older woman, yo, she's playing him like she's Charlie Daniels, bro. She got that fiddle.
And that's fine, and he might appear to be happy, but what she's doing and what she's doing to that family isn't right. And even though as guys, there still is a part of you that's like, yo, she's hot. It's not okay. We need to hold women to the same standard that men are held to. Hey, guys like Mel Hall from the New York Yankees, it's in a recent documentary on Amazon Prime called The Bronx Zoo, the 1990 Yankees. He's in prison for stuff like this, you know? So it's not okay, even though we kind of understand or get it. What makes this a bad story is, again, how it's torn the family apart. And if this is a gold-digging situation, you know, it needs to be brought to light, and that's why we bring it up here. It's a really convoluted story, and it makes us think of all these other age disparities in sports.
Yeah, dude, I mean, listen, for all we know, this dude's family stinks, and she's awesome. We don't know the full story.
Telling you the story as we know it as of now.
I mean, it seems like his family is all on the same page, so it looks like we know where it's leaning. But I did have a buddy that slept with a teacher in high school. Mm-hmm. We gave him bro hugs, high fives, like, dude, way to go. Looking back, that put him on a bad path. And like,
it put him on a bad path, and here's why. This kid, I know the kid you speak of because I've known Rich for a long time. Yeah. He was an all-state baseball player. He had all the potential in the world. He was the king of the high school. He's sleeping with the teacher, and he'd think it's all great. But he wasn't mentally equipped to handle the heartbreak and trauma and the manipulation that this older woman put him through. And if it's wrong for grown men to do this to young women, and we all agree and admit that it is, then the flip side needs to be true. We need to keep that standard high and alive. And I'll tell you what, as a dad, and we're all fathers, if this was happening with your daughter, Rich, you would not be okay with it. And I don't think you'd be okay if your son was doing it either, if she was that significantly older at that time. So again, that's the story.
And for the record, I don't know if it's fact with my buddy in high school, but I mean, it was the story everyone told, including him. And I remember us being like, yo, for real? It seems cool. Like I said, like the movie, That's My Boy, Adam Sandler. People are giving bro hugs and high fives, but a lot of times mentally the young guy can't handle it. This dude's a basketball star, and a woman that's almost 30 sort of pulling the strings. It feels a little off. I agree with you.
Is there a chance that she loves him to death and they're soulmates and the greatest relationship ever? Yeah, there's a possibility of that, but there's also a great possibility that this kid doesn't know what he's doing, what he's wrapped up in, he's being manipulated, and that she just saw dollar signs in this great basketball phenom. Again, he's part of the Utah Jazz right now, and we'll keep you posted on that. Now, these other stories that we bring up, they're not doing anything wrong. We're just thinking of these other giant age gaps. Because as time goes on, it becomes, I guess, okay and acceptable because we're now talking about adults.
Dude, when I was a junior in college, I dated a freshman, and my buddies would be like, dude, she's like 18 or 19. I was like, dude, I'm 20. As you get older, you know, the age gap doesn't matter. Unless it's Belichickian. I mean, Bill Belichick's what? 72? Jordan Hudson is 24. That is a big ass age.
That's Rich. I did the math real quick. 48 years. Now, is it okay? Is it legal? Yeah, it's all those things, but it doesn't make you scratch your noggin and say, Well, it makes you say a few different things. Hey, good for him. But it also makes you say, that's kind of weird, right? So, hey, you can't help but notice that. And this one, on the flip side, Larsa Pippen, when she was dating Marcus Jordan, I mean, the whole thing was a little weird, right? Pippen's ex with Jordan's son. She's 49. He's 33. And you got to realize that women mature a lot faster mentally than men. Her 49 is like 69 in my opinion. Yeah. 69! And that's a 16-year age gap. And again, maybe we just feel that one more because we're so used to seeing the older guy with the younger woman. And in this case, you see the older woman with the younger guy. And that's not fair either.
Is there a part of you that think Michael Jordan still laughs at that? Like, yo, my son's banging Scotty's ex?
Probably, you know what? Maybe. Yeah, probably. It's got to be weird, though. Whole weird situation.
I got one more in the world of sports as far as age differences. What about his final year in the NFL? I don't know, Tom Brady and everyone on his team, including receivers?
Tom Brady. Yes. And you know what? Credit to Tom Brady because he was able to still relate and learn and grow with the young players. They kept him relevant, and he taught them a thing or two about playing the game. So a relationship that sort of worked. But yes, Tom Brady, who's in his 40s, and his receivers are, barely 20-something. So no props. Doubt. There you go. It's a crazy story, guys. A developing story, but one that's starting to finally make the headlines it deserves. The story of Kyle Filipowski and Caitlin Hutchinson. And that brings us to another anniversary.
Another story that is interesting to me. Do you know that we are celebrating the 39th anniversary of one of the greatest movies of all time? Some call it the perfect movie. Back to the Future.
Well, not only some. I mean, we call it that because it stands the test of time and it still hits. But every major film critic ever, from Siskel and Ebert to, can you name another one?
Rotten Potatoes.
To who was that guy we grew up with? Jeffrey Lyons. You name it.
Yeah, I always thought those guys sucked. I'll be honest. I'm like, 2 thumbs down, 2 thumbs up. They were famous, but I was like, I don't give a shit.
No, but even Rotten Potatoes says the closest thing to a perfect movie because it was just so well done. And to have the nuts, to wear the nuts enough to say, hey, we need to do this over. Remember, Eric Stoltz. I'll give you a little fun fact, and it's common knowledge to fans of the movie, but Eric Stoltz, some kind of wonderful Eric Stoltz, mask Eric Stoltz, played Marty McFly. They had filmed it and everything, and they're like, you know what? It's just not capturing that magical vibe that we were looking for. It's supposed to be a fun movie, and Stoltz was bringing some different type of energy, so they were like, cut. We need that dude Alex P. Keaton from Family Ties. We need that Teen Wolf dude. We need that guy.
Was there anyone cooler in the 80s than Michael J. Fox, who was recently on stage with Coldplay, shredding on the guitar? So, he's still cool to this day. I always feel so terrible seeing Michael J. Fox these days. But let me give you a couple more fun facts about, quote, the greatest movie of all time. There's a lot of speculation as to how he and Doc Emmett Brown were even friends. Do you know what the answer is when they ask the writers and everything? Because it is interesting. You're like, yo, dude, why is this cool high school kid friends with an old-ass weird scientist?
There's a big age gap here, speaking of age gaps.
Yeah. What the hell's going on there?
Marty! I don't know. And what was the relationship?
As you see the picture of them by the DeLorean sales skyrocket after this movie, as you can imagine.
You mean to tell me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
I always wonder this, and the only explanation the writers give is, oh yeah, a couple years prior, Marty stumbled into Doc Emmett Brown's lab and they became pals. That's the only explanation. So super fans are still confused. Like,
but you know what, Rich? We grew up in a more innocent time, this 1980s something, and we weren't really worrying about that. We just assumed they were friends. Like, isn't that a nice relationship they had? When you think about it, Marty's dad was kind of a weenie. So Doc Emmett Brown was a cool sort of guy to vibe with, and he had he had some cool clocks on the wall and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you a couple more fun facts about maybe the greatest movie.
Was that his speaker though?
The giant speaker.
Was it his amp? Was it Doc's amp?
Doc's amp.
He needed a cool place to play some Van Halen.
Now, another fun fact about this movie: one of our favorites, Ralph Macchio. We all talk about Eric Stoltz. Macchio auditioned for this. They thought he was too New Jersey to play Marty McFly. So in an alternate universe, it may have worked with Ralph Macchio.
I could see that. I really could, but it would have been a different vibe.
Yeah.
Again, what makes this almost the perfect movie was the fact that Michael J. Fox was the perfect guy for this role. His chemistry with Christopher Lloyd, you know what I mean? Like everything about that was perfect casting and perfect chemistry. So, yeah, I could have seen Ralph Macchio in it, but he is too Jersey of a kid.
Yeah.
He's too
I'll give you
Italian.
one more fun fact and question for you. Bob Gale, who's one of the writers, did the movie with Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
The movie came about in 1980. It took, a good 5 years to make this movie. You know what the original premise was? The writer, Bob Gale, went back to his house, his childhood home. He's flipping through old boxes and finds his dad's high school yearbook. And he sees that his dad's like a popular jock. And he was sort of a nerd. And he thought, man, if I went back in time, would I be friends with my dad? And that was the original concept of how they came up, like with the movie and the plot line. Like, oh shit, if a kid went back in time, if you went back in time, do you think you'd be friends with your dad? Do you think you'd be like, oh, my mom's pretty? Like, it's a very weird thought, right?
Yeah, George McFly was a major nerd, and Marty McFly was a cool kid, and we got magic and reaped all the benefits of an awesome movie and an awesome soundtrack. Speaking of back in time, they wanted Huey Lewis to come up with a song, and he did, and he was hot at the time, and it worked. And he said as long as he didn't have to include the title into the movie, then he would do that, because Power of Love, right? There's really no backstory to Power of Love and Back to the Future, but it worked. It just worked, and they ran with it. And he's in the movie. Another fun fact that I think most people know.
Would it freak you out if you went back in time and your mom had the hots for you?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, that's the whole. And by the way, creepy premise, but we rolled with it because it's fun and it's the 80s, and who cares?
The 80s.
Now, based on all these fun facts and the anniversary of a great movie, and I know it still hits because when I watch it with my teenage daughter, again, their attention span is non-existent, and she can admit that she loves it. That's when you know it's a classic. When it stands the test of time, that's when you know. So based on Back to the Future, what other movies of that era, which movies also stand the test of time? We got two more, and you could add to the list at Covino and Rich, at Fox Sports Radio, hashtag OVERPROMISED. You mentioned them already, Rich, so I got to give him props. One of my favorite movies of all time, and just celebrated 40 years. 40 years. Happy anniversary to Karate Kid. I think it still stands the test of time. Every kid is doing karate moves after watching this movie, even today.
Yeah, and the new season of Cobra Kai, the final season of Cobra Kai, later this month. So Karate Kid's a great answer.
And by the way, Rich, hold on. Another old guy, young kid sort of relationship.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, hey, Daniel-san.
Hey,
but we saw how they met.
You're a dad now. You would not be letting your kid hang out with Miyagi or Doc Emmett Brown.
But again, yeah, you're right. But we looked at that and we're like, what a nice relationship they had, right? And they really did. As we found out, and we've interviewed Ralph Macchio many times, not the name drop, but he did the eulogy for Pat Morita. They really were close friends and connected forever, because that movie is still a classic. And I have a fun fact before we move on and give you our last one. You're the best around. That was actually written for Rocky 3?
Yep.
That was written for Rocky, and that's why they say victory repeats itself. It was written for Rocky, but they used it for Karate Kid.
And then they used Eye of the Tiger for Rocky 3, so it all sort of worked out, right?
It all worked out. It's still a classic, still holds the test of time. Back to the Future, Karate Kid, and what's our third nomination here?
Well, when you play these movies and show your teens or your young kids or your nieces and nephews, they think everything's old and corny. There's three.
Yeah.
Back to the Future, Karate Kid, and the third one.
Didn't you try to show your niece and nephew Gremlins, and they threw popcorn at the TV and booed you and told you your movies suck? And
I believe they started chanting Uncle Rich sucks.
Gremlins is corny. You're the worst, Uncle Rich.
I hate Uncle Rich.
Because not everything stands the test of time.
Yeah, but the third one, and we've talked about this for years, the trifecta of Back to the Future, Karate Kid, and Goonies.
I gotta agree with you, Rich. When Rich and I agree, it's fact. Kids still have that same feeling we did watching this. Like, I wish I had friends like this and went on an adventure and went on that water slide into the pirate ship and One-Eyed Willie's treasure. The thought of finding treasure with your friends, still magical, still awesome till this day, Deontay Wilder style.
All right. Well, hey, we're getting into the 4th of July weekend. I want to drop a couple 4th of July fun facts because I'm fun fact guy.
You're
fun Dickie.
You're
fun Uncle Rich.
You're Funkle Rich fun fact boy, man. You love fun facts.
And then a question for you, being that a lot of people are going to be grilling, barbecuing, having their cookouts. John Adams, get this. This is wild to me. John Adams, one of our forefathers, do you know that he never celebrated the 4th of July because he was insistent that we started signing the Declaration of Independence and everything started going through on July 2nd, that he refused 4th of July parties because he was like, fuck it, it's from July 2nd. Like, do you know that or no?
No, I didn't know that shit.
Yeah.
So you mean he missed out on all the sparklers and jumping jacks and Husker do's and Husker don'ts? He didn't participate in the fun?
It was John Adams who said, moving forward, this date will be about pomp and parade, bells, guns, sports. And then he's the guy that sits it out because he goes, no, July 2nd. And everyone else is like, no, the 4th.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, man. Well, don't
John
be a party
Hancock,
pooper. Don't be a party pooper like that guy. Enjoy your Roman candles safely, of course.
Yeah, and John Hancock, among others, the most famous, signature on the Declaration of Independence.
I'm sorry, Rich. I don't mean to correct you on Overpromised, but it's Herbie Hancock.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because, things didn't move. It's not like people were docu-signing things back then. You had to pass around a freaking, the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I believe Nick Cage has in his backpack, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's our national treasure.
Guys weren't signing it. John Adams, that big-ass signature, that was in August of 1776. So July 4th is sort of an arbitrary day when you think about it. It was just sort of the official day. So enjoy. And, of course, it's synonymous with
Isn't that
fireworks.
when the Yankee Doodle Dandy was born?
Of course.
You're the dandiest.
I'm a Yankee Doodle.
You should know.
So my question for you is, it is the 4th of July week, and today, of all days, you must love this. It's National Bean Day.
Oh, hey. Every day's bean day for this guy. Stevie likes beans. Don't you, Stevie?
That's why Spot doesn't carpool with you anymore.
Yeah. Who doesn't like beans?
I mean, I love beans, but I know you and I over the years have argued, are beans automatic at a 4th of July cookout?
Dude, they're hydromatic. We have thought about this because we've been doing this show for years, and we get ready for holiday weekends. I'm like, yo, man, I can't wait. Corn on the cob, burgers, dog. Get those beans ready. Rich is like, beans? What do you mean beans? I'm like, yeah, dude, if you're having a real barbecue or a cookout, even, look, I'm a Jersey kid, so a barbecue for me was burgers and dogs. It was just grilling. But we always had the baked beans on standby. I don't care what kind of beans. I'm also Mexican, so if you had those refried beans, let's go. You need the beans. They're good for your heart. You know the deal.
If you're having real barbecue, like down here in Texas where I'm spending the 4th of July, if you got brisket, if Uncle Bart's bringing over his pulled pork, yes, beans are part of the equation. But if you're in New Jersey or your dad's throwing some Nathan's dogs on the grill, I don't think beans are automatic. But hey, have at it. Fart your ass off.
I'm saying they are. Yeah. Give me the fart bombs. Let's go. Give me some beans this holiday season. And then we pose this question on National Bean Day. If not beans, then what's the barbecue must-have for you? Someone invites you to their barbecue, their cookout this weekend, and they don't have blank. You're like, hey, I'm sorry, bro. You sort of dropped the ball on this. You're no Ray Lampy, Dr. Barbecue. Where's the fixins? How do you not have blank? Is there another one, Richard? Like, I always want some corn. I do want corn on the cob. I threw that out there. I want that.
Who doesn't like corn on the cob? But you know what? That's where it's up to you guys. Hit us up at Covino and Rich. As we say, have a great 4th of July. What is the necessity, the essential 4th of July side? Is it beans?
Is it beans? What else do you need there? Can you add to our list of movies that stand the test of time from that 1980-something era? And how do you feel about this Kyle Filipowski story? Chime in at Covino and Rich at Fox Sports Radio. And again, join us on Fox Sports Radio Monday through Friday. Have a great weekend.
Perfect. Enjoy. We'll see you. Arrivederci, baby.
See you in the overpromised land. Back it up, Terry.